guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to do an update or a part 2 to a pretty popular story that I covered about a week and a half ago, which is titled, My Friends with Benefits Lied About Being Married and I Helped Her Husband with a Divorce. And guys, that story is a quick recap. That is all about the guy who, he's early 30s, if I recall, single guy, living the bachelor life. And at one point he met this young gal when he was out doing his Friday night thing at the, he liked to do, I think, line dancing or something like that. He's out west. He met this gal who became his friends with benefits, who he would hook up quite regularly with. This went on for 4 months. You know, he had a good time with her, but certainly wasn't getting attached. And lo and behold, he finds out that she's married. He saw clues and figured it out. And then did his homework, tracked her down where her family was, and he went and told her husband. And that guy just felt terrible for what he did because he had no idea that she was married. Delivered the information to the husband, showed him proof, and he had no idea what was going to happen. That husband was going to kick his ass or he was going to do something worse. But he told the husband, and now he is helping him with the divorce as a witness and all that. We're on to part 2 here, and this is a little different. This isn't a part 2 from the guy that told the original story. This is a part 2 from the husband he's helping. He let the guy know that he did this video, and the guy watched it as well as a bunch of my channels, and how he's writing in, sharing me from his point of view, all the things that led up to this whole thing when he found out from this stranger showing up at his door, telling him that he's been having an affair with his wife, all that, and didn't know things that were leading up to it, what's been going on, etc., etc. And I thought it would be very interesting one to cover here because this guy wants his story to be shared. He really wants guys to know this type of stuff happens, and hopefully it can help some guys out there pay attention to red flags and avoid this type of thing. And that's what I think is so important about this channel and the stories that come in. Men want to be heard. Men want to say what they got to say, let guys know this type of things happen, and to really try to help prevent these types of things. So, and it's also, as a lot of guys say, very therapeutic to share their story, to get their story on paper and get it out there and hear opinions and get feedback. And you guys are great at the feedback. So I'm going to go through a story here. And by the way, as you can clearly see, this is a long video. In fact, his story is what he wrote to me is like 20 pages long on an 8.5 by 11 paper. I'm not doing the whole thing right here. So this is part 2, but this is actually part 1 of 2, what he wrote me. So part 3 will be later on today. I'm going to film this part, take a break, come back later, and I'll publish part 3 later on, probably in the early evening. So he says here, hello SSM. I'm not sure if I'm doing this properly because I've never done anything like this before. I've never been that interested in social media or sites like Reddit, so if my formatting or detail seems a bit jumbled, please excuse me. Brother, you did a great job. This is extremely well written. You posted a video last week around Wednesday, I think, about a guy I'm going to call Adam. He found out that a lady he met at a club turned out to be married, and he told the husband. Well, I'm the husband. And by the way, guys, when he wrote into me and I saw this email, I'm thinking, oh shit, this guy's pissed. But no, he's cool and he wants to share his story. You can call me Chuck, and I'm 35 years old, and as embarrassing as this is, I wanted to share my story. I watched a bunch of your other videos, and I can see that you're doing this to help men out. I wish none of this was going on, but until the night that Adam knocked on my door, I had no idea what my wife was doing, and it makes me wonder what else I don't know. In Adam's story, he called her Gracie, and she's 32, so to avoid any confusion, I'll use the same name. I'd appreciate it if you didn't reveal her real name. We're still in the discovery phase of our pending divorce, so there are some things I can't talk about, but I'll try to explain how I got here. Brother, all names and locations and everything are completely confidential. I do not reveal anything. Email addresses, and any of you guys that are thinking about sending your story, same thing. I will not reveal. Just use code names and don't be too detailed about where you live, and I certainly won't reveal anything, emails, all that. You guys are safe. Our relationship started 10 years ago, and we've been married for 7 of them in what I thought was a loving and healthy marriage. How many times have we heard that, gentlemen? I had no idea we were having problems, and if not for seeing what Adam showed me with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed a word he said. At least not to the extent of what was going on. I knew there were a few changes in recent months, but never in a million years would I have ever believed what I found out. Those changes all started not too long after her best friend, we can call Mary, and her husband divorced after being married for a little more than 5 years, and they had no kids. For what I was told about the divorce, it was an amicable split, but they just grew apart. But I also got the sense from Gracie and Mary that Mary was the one that wanted the marriage to continue, but her husband divorced her anyway. Well, then probably something was going on. There's something about Mary, something Mary did to cause the problem. People don't just fade away, fall apart in just 5 years. I can see after 20 years being married, but 5 years, there's more going on. There's more to that. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, having spent a considerable amount of time with both of them over the years. From what I could tell, her husband loved her, but it wasn't any of my business. Her husband moved back to his home state shortly after the divorce, and I haven't talked to him since. That was in September 2022. After the divorce, Mary was really depressed and spent a lot of time at our house. I can remember feeling proud how Gracie was trying to help her friend. That's one of the things I loved about her from almost the beginning. She's always been a very giving and selfless person to those she cared about. I saw in her the things that I knew would make her a wonderful mother, and she was. In our lives, I always made an effort to take her out and be interested in her hobbies. After her daughter was born, she gave up her career and became a full-time mom, and she put all her energy into our family. Well, that's great, but now you are taking on everything financially. And what happens in a lot of these stories are the husband takes on everything financially, and then the woman complains because he's never around him as much to take care of her, even though she's become the stay-at-home mom. And don't get me wrong, that's a hell of a lot of work. I get that, especially with small children. But still, they complain, I'm not getting enough attention. Well, I'm working full-time to provide the lifestyle for you and the children. Can't make them happy. Not one time did she ever say or do anything that made me think she was unhappy about anything. I went to work and she took care of our home and we spent time as a family. Not one time did she ever complain about her responsibilities in the house and even chastise me when I tried to help her cook after I got off work. She said she didn't come to work with me and help me with my job, and I shouldn't be helping her with hers. Well, that's great if that was genuine, but everything that I know happens here makes me question whether she's being genuine or not. That's not to say I didn't help clean up after myself or spend time taking care of our daughter and my wife. I did, and she repeatedly told me how lucky she was to have a husband that worked so hard for the family. Maybe I just missed it, but looking back, I can't think of anything that was even questionable. So here you go, guys. This guy really thought they had a great marriage. Everything seemed cool. She's appreciative. She's helpful. I'm sure, obviously, she's good looking. Takes care of him in the bedroom. He's like, hey, I got the life. And one day, there's Adam knocking at the door. I knew she felt bad for Mary when her marriage failed, and that only seemed to make Gracie give me more attention, and we talked quite a few times about how important our lives together were, and she said she didn't want to go through what her friend did, and how she didn't want our daughter to be raised in a broken home. Well, how interesting that she said that to you, and we know how this whole story goes. I know there's no thing as a perfect relationship, but we took the time to talk to each other about any concerns, and I put in the effort to make sure that she knew she and our daughter were my highest priority. That's great, but you have to take care of you too, sir. I busted my ass in my career to provide a nice life for all of us, but I never missed an opportunity, both family time and time as a couple, to show how much I appreciated her. I've seen too many couples fall apart after they have children because they forgot that they were a couple before they were parents. It was the very reason my own parents' marriage failed. I love my parents, but they never took time for themselves and ended up divorced by the time I was 5 years old. Yeah, exactly. There's a balance, Yeah, you have kids. You got to take care of the kids, but you got to have time for each other and date and do all that. And the guy, especially if the guy's busting his butt providing for the family, he has to have his time too to himself, for his hobbies, his interests, all that. But if he makes the wife the center of his universe, we all know how that story ends, right? And it's just unfortunate. You want to in a perfect world, you could treat, in this situation, your wife, and you show your love through your actions and your word, treat her great. And unfortunately, nowadays, when you do that, that is perceived as weakness. And it's unbelievable. Women you hear all the time, I hear all the time, who hurt you? I get that all the time in the comment section. Who hurt you, SSM? Well, nobody hurt me. I've been, the school of life has taught me reality. And then I talk about reality on the channel to everybody else. And people don't like, oftentimes, reality, the truth. And so they hate on me until they discover reality. Anyway. From the end of Mary's divorce at the beginning of September 2022 until the first week of December, we were doing what we could to support Mary as a friend. There are 2 other couples that we would spend time with, and in that time we were having get-togethers on the weekends, and everyone to show Mary that she had friends who cared about her. The other 2 women, we will call them Shelley, 27 years old, in a 3.5-year relationship that looked like it was headed towards marriage, and Belinda, interesting name, 31 years old, married 4 years, no kids, and had been close friends with Gracie and Mary for years. So the witch's coven there. Gracie and I were the only ones in our friend group with a child, and that changed our date nights from going out dancing to things that could be done at the house. That's not to say we never went out, but it certainly cut down the frequency. All of Gracie's friends loved our daughter Amelia and doted on her whenever they were around. They were also so close that our daughter called them Auntie whatever their names were. So, okay, you can't go to the club dancing anymore because you have a daughter, and that is your priority. That's your priority and your wife's priority. So, God forbid if y'all aren't going out to the dance clubs or wherever the hell y'all go, like her friends are, because you have a child. You have now that next stage in life, and you grow up. You, sir, grew up, but clearly we can see somebody else didn't grow up. And again, this story is going to show, what I say all the time, you pay attention to who your girl hangs out with. Because if your girl's hanging out with, if she's in a relationship with you, or you're married and have children, and she hangs out with all these single gals or gals that don't have children, and they like to go out on the weekends and do all these things, it's going to rub off on her, guaranteed. Or if one of them does an open relationship, or one of them cheats regularly, it's going to rub off on her. There shouldn't be any more of these girls' nights at the club and all that crap anymore. No. The family is the top priority. That she ended that shit the second she said, I do. And you don't hear guys going and doing those things. But nobody wants to grow up anymore. Nobody has any traditional values. But again, look what you see all the time out there in TV and movies and what's being promoted. And don't get me started on feminism promoting you can't be a strong, empowered woman unless you hooked up with many guys in town, and you get the point. Anyway, it was in November 2022 when we were having dinner at our home, and when out of the blue, Mary just broke down crying uncontrollably. Shocker. I found out later that night that everyone went home that Mary was having a hard time being around us in a happy relationships, and she felt like the odd man out. I guess I could understand that. Gracie said that she and her friends were starting to spend time with Mary at her house without the guys there, so the women could have some bonding time without rubbing our relationships in her face, and I understood. Oh, here we go. Okay, Mary's crying because she's seeing our happy little family here. So maybe it's a good thing that us girls just go out, so she doesn't have to see the happy family time. That was a good idea. Translation, let's set the stage that we can all have no chaperones watching us, and alcohol's involved, and now we're in our 30s, and we know we're not as attractive as before, so we want to make sure we're still wanted and attracted, and you guys can fill in the blanks what's going to happen next. Gracie said they all decided they were going to do movie nights, drink wine, and spend time with Mary to help her get over her divorce and move on with her life. I'm glad that's nice they're helping a friend, but this chick really sounds like a fucking leech. I mean, okay, you got a divorce. You don't need to be with your girls every goddamn weekend or whatever. Start working on yourself. Move on. Honest to God here. This girl sounds like a big fucking crybaby. Yes, divorce is hard and all that, but come on here. I can't be the only one thinking this. There's nothing out of character in that for Gracie, since she always put other people first, and Mary's been her BFF longer than we have been together. Basically, they would all get together at Mary's place and sit around and talk or watch those cheesy chick flicks. Because she was going to be drinking, I would usually drop her off at Mary's, go in, and my daughter and me would say hello before going home and spending the evening with some daddy-daughter time. While Gracie was having her girl time with her friends and would catch an Uber home. She worked hard in her home, and I didn't think that what was going on, it was going on forever, so I didn't give much thought to it. I mean, I get it. Sometimes it's nice to just unplug with your friends and not worry about all the day-to-day stuff. No big deal, and she would help Mary, who was also my friend of years, get to a better mindset and get on with her life. Then all the better. This is when the changes started to happen. Hence, girls' nights and problems start. By the end of January, this had become our new normal, and the times that I did see Mary, she seemed like she was getting on a lot better. I never had any issues with Gracie spending time with her friends, and the time we were together, she always expressed her gratitude for me being so understanding while she was out helping Mary. Thinking back, I can't think of anything that indicated there was anything wrong in my relationship. Gracie never dressed up or put on a lot of makeup when she went out to visit Mary on those Friday or Saturday nights that she was away. You telling me this went on every weekend, either on a Friday or Saturday or both? This is too much. Way too much. I mean, I could go into all the red flags I've seen already, but I know you guys really want to hear this long story, and it's a long story, so I'm minimizing the usual commentary here. From what I can remember, I don't recall Gracie spending any more time texting or being secretive about anything. I guess I didn't know what to look for, but there was nothing in her behaviors that was screaming at me, and there were any problems. There was one weekend that Amelia was running a high temperature and Gracie didn't go to Mary's. We spent that weekend taking care of our daughter and watching movies together. Knowing what I know now, I feel sick, but at the time I didn't see anything that was giving me concerns about anything. Nothing in her behavior was off, and she was the same loving, caring wife and mother that I've known for 10 years. So this chick is a master at covering her tracks. Unfortunately, she wasn't a master hiding on the other end, and this guy turned her in, as you all know. Sir, a little intermission here. I'm really sorry about this. I really am. And the last thing you ever expected this to happen, and but I can tell you now, you got guys all over the world that are going to watch your story here, listen to your story here, your side of things, and I've got your back. You're going to be okay. But and you sharing this story is going to help so many guys out there that we're going to hear this one day and look for red flags and all that. So you're doing a service, and I appreciate you writing this in. Okay, guys, here's where things start getting ugly. Over the next couple of months, I could see that Mary was doing a lot better, and I was starting to get tired of Gracie spending every Friday night over at Mary's getting drunk. You're darn right. That is not the behavior a mother and wife should be doing. No fucking way. That's when you should have been laying down the law. I'm being honest. I don't have a problem with it occasionally, but she started coming home later and later every time, and she was drunk. I brought my concerns to her several times, and it looked like this was becoming a pattern, and I didn't think it was going to be good to be drinking so much. She just said there was nothing wrong with her spending that time with her girlfriends, and that she worked hard all week in our home and deserved some time for herself. So the loving, generous wife who she was before is becoming this self-centered asshole who's all of a sudden making demands. Yes, raising a kid is work and cleaning the house and cooking, but guess what? This guy gets up every day early, goes to do the 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 7 every day. Your lifestyle is because of him. And she's getting entitled. You don't see him getting entitled like I need to go out every Friday, Saturday with my guys and coming home drunk. No, he's not doing this. But for her, here is the entitlement, guys. Meanwhile, we know what's going on behind the scenes. I let it go. You shouldn't have, sir. But I didn't like that this was becoming our new normal. It had been more than 4 months since she spent a Friday with me and our daughter. Other than the time Amelia was sick, and I felt like there was a part of her life that I wasn't welcome to share. Everything in our lives had been going on as normal until one Friday evening in May of this year when somebody knocked on my door at almost 9 p.m. Here we go, guys. This is where the guy that told the story before comes into play. My daughter and I were in the living room playing in the makeshift tent that I made between the couch and the recliner. There's just something about kids' imagination that make a grown man act like a little kid, and to be honest, it doesn't take a lot to make a man do that anyway. Anyway, I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door to find a guy that I never met before standing there looking like he was ready to run. I said hello and asked him if I could help him, and he asked me how I knew Gracie. My first instinct was anger and confusion. But I told him that she was my wife and that he dropped a nuke on the life I thought I was living. It took less than 20 minutes for him to detail that he had been sleeping with my wife for the last 4 months, and I didn't believe him at first. Can you imagine that? You're just home with your kid playing in those makeshift tents, which are badass, by the way. You get the blankets and the sheets, and you get the furniture and make a big giant, like a big Arab tent out in the desert. It's fucking badass. I used to do that. And knock on the door and said, hello, how do you know such and such? I've been banging your wife. Poor guy. To tell the truth, I almost hit him with even suggesting it. But he handed me his phone that had a string of text conversations, pictures, nude and clothed of him and my wife in what looked like a relationship. It was the last part of her text message to him that completely destroyed me. She She was detailing in brutal honesty the things that she wanted to do with him, most of which she had never even suggested to me, and I felt completely broken. Notice that? Stuff that she wasn't going to do with her husband, the love of her life, but she was more than happy to do it with her lover. We've heard that all the times before, guys. Adam kept telling me how sorry he was and swearing that he had no idea that she was married or in a relationship, and I don't know why, but I believed him. It would have taken a complete suicidal man or a complete narcissist to come to my house and admit that he was nailing my wife. My gut said that he was telling me the truth. He had nothing to gain from telling me what he did unless he was a complete psycho, and he didn't strike me as a man that would throw himself at my mercy if he had an ulterior motive. Everything went kind of blank in my mind at the moment, but I do remember sitting down on my front porch talking to him for a little while. As terrible as I was feeling, there was no doubt in my mind that he felt even worse. When I told him Gracie and I had been married for 7 years and had a 4-year-old daughter, he started crying and swearing that he had no idea. Well, sir, I can tell you from his email, which you heard in the other video, he had no idea. And this was a guy himself that was cheated on before with a gal that he really loved, and that's his big RP moment and saw the world as it is. And so this guy hates cheaters, and this is why he came to your doorstep. And again, it took major balls for him to do that, and I commend him for that. I think that was the hardest thing I've ever had to face, and while I wanted to hate him, if what he told me and showed me on his phone was the truth, that man had probably nothing to gain by lying to me and saved me from the problem I didn't know existed. If Gracie was cheating on me, and I was finding it difficult to deny anything that Adam told me, I knew that the life I've been living for the last decade was over, and it wasn't going to be pretty. I think I sat on my porch for about 10 minutes after Adam drove away, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. I could only think of 2 possibilities. Either he was a complete bastard and was trying to destroy my marriage for some unknown reason, or he was telling me the truth. I had to know, but for whatever reason, I kept asking myself why. If there was something I'd done wrong to make her do this to me. I didn't know what it was. I know it wasn't my fault, but those were the random thoughts running through my head that night. That's what so many guys in your shoes, man, have thought. Believe me, I've been cheated on many, many, many moons ago, and I thought the same fucking thing. But at the end of the day, sure, nobody's perfect, and all relationships can have their ups and downs. That person made the choice to cheat. They could have communicated with you, but nope. And your wife could have, she was unhappy, she could have talked to you, but nope. She had the perfect situation with you and the daughter and figured, hey, I want more. Cake and eat it too, as the saying goes. The one thing I was having the hardest time with was being able to take a complete stranger at face value. I had to know. It was a little later after 9:30 when I went to my neighbor's house and asked if their daughter could babysit Amelia for a few hours. She was a nice girl, 14, and had been a regular sitter for a few years. Her parents were fine with it, and what 14-year-old doesn't want to make $100 for a couple of hours watching TV? I figured it was an easy enough theory to test to see if Adam was lying. He said that Gracie was waiting for him at a club, but I dropped her off to watch the movies at Mary's house for a few hours before he knocked on my door. I decided to drive her to Mary's, and if she and her friends were there, it wouldn't give me a reason to doubt what Adam told me. Mary only lived about 15 minutes away from our house, and I would have loved to say that when I got there, I found Gracie and her friends sitting around drinking wine and watching chick flicks. But after knocking on the door for more than 10 minutes, it was clear nobody was home. 10 minutes. Longest 10 minutes of his life. I wasn't going to go home, but I had to know. Adam told me the name of the club that he met her at and claimed that she was waiting for him, so I went to the club. If she wasn't there, I would have gone a long way to be able to dismiss what Adam had said. Even after seeing all the text messages that he claimed she sent, I was holding out some slim hope that this was somehow messed up and elaborate lie. I don't blame you, man. Nobody wants to hear what you heard, but I just couldn't believe that the woman I had given my last decade of my life to would do the things that she's been accused of doing. I didn't want to believe it, but somewhere deep down inside, I knew I couldn't ignore it. I made it to the bar Adam told me about just before 11 p.m. I almost didn't go in, and I'm not sure if it was because I didn't want to believe any of this that was happening, or I was afraid to confirm that it was. But after about 5 minutes trying to talk myself out of it, I couldn't rationalize it away. I knew that if I went in and saw Gracie, there was no way that I could lie to myself. In the end, I went in, and it didn't take very long to find Gracie and her friends drinking and having a wonderful time with some guys in a booth. And by the way, guys, let's remember here that the other two friends are in relationships. Mary, Shelley, and Belinda were all over a couple of guys there, and they were certainly not Shelley's boyfriend or Belinda's husband. Mary's with another guy, and Gracie was laughing and drinking with her friends, but didn't have anyone with her. I wanted to go over her and yank her out of the booth and ask her what the hell was going on, but in my gut I already knew. Instead of confronting them, I pulled out my phone and recorded about a 5-minute video of them all doing shit that none of them should have been doing. Very smart, sir. Very smart. No one would blame you if you ran over there and read them the riot act, but now you got more evidence. And you have evidence on her asshole friends, and that's great. Any doubts of what Adam had told me were gone, and I think that's when I knew my marriage was over. The drive home was not very fun. Even I wasn't the best husband, Gracie never told me that there was anything wrong in our relationship. Communication is key, gentlemen. If you're going to do relationships, you got to have a gal that it can communicate with you when something's bothering her, she's upset, not hoping you're a mind reader and will figure it out. That will not drop hints and talk in innuendos. A woman that's direct and knows your language and can speak to you that way, and you can speak to her. But the thing is, I got to really wonder. I don't think that she was unhappy in the marriage. People could argue with me on that. She had it made, but she just wanted to have that single lifestyle and be out at the clubs all over again like she was when she was younger, get all that attention. And that's what it really was. And just like unfortunately, so many women nowadays that are married, they don't want to grow up. No values, nothing. The family doesn't mean anything to them. By the time I made it home, there was no doubt left in me that the last 10 years of my life was going to end in divorce, and my daughter was going to be the one that had to pay the biggest price. Normally, Gracie on her movie nights would get home around 1 a.m., and I'm not sure why. I didn't see anything wrong with it, but I felt like a complete idiot after finding out what was really going on. Don't beat yourself up. She played it pretty damn well. The only thing I really criticize in this is that I get you wanted to help her with her helping her friend, and they claimed they were all at her friend's house watching movies and drinking wine. Not like going out to bars and clubs and stuff like that. But you did bring it up to her, but I would have been more forceful. Like, okay, enough's enough. Her friend can get over it every Friday night, and especially you coming home drunk. That I would have really rid of the riot act on. That's really the only thing you really could have done in that situation, because she was a master covering her tracks. And also, you thought, just like so many guys before, you thought there's no red flags. What should I be worried about? I got a great marriage, great mom, great wife. Apparently not. It was just after midnight when Gracie came home, and she found me standing in the doorway of our daughter's room just watching her sleep. I was so lost in my thoughts I didn't even hear her come in, and she startled the hell out of me when she touched my shoulder and asked what I was doing. I could tell she'd been drinking, and she wrapped me in a big hug. I would have been like, "Get your fucking hands off me." We stood there for a few minutes watching our daughter sleeping. I wanted to shout and scream and confront her, but there she was, acting like she hadn't just destroyed the last decade of my life and ruined our daughter's life. Yeah, let's remember this. She isn't just cheating on the guy here, she's also cheating on the daughter, cheating on the family, ruining the family just so she can get some attention and validation and, well, let's be honest, some sausage. I simply can't understand how someone can do that to a person they claim to love and act normal. Well, clearly she didn't love you the way you loved her. And I'm sorry to say that, but her actions have demonstrated that. I think when I looked at her for the first time since I met her, I was wondering who the hell this person was who was standing in front of me. She wasn't the person I courted, married, and built a family around after years of personal sacrifice. Maybe it's just something that inside cheaters that lets them think they're not doing anything wrong. But I can't even imagine being comfortable enough in my life to betray someone so severely and then being able to look them in the eyes without a shred of guilt. That's called being a fucking sociopath. She's not who you thought she was, and I'm very sorry to hear that, but you know what? You're still in your 30s. You got your life ahead of you, and things will get better. But first, you got to take her ass down. I was fairly numb when we went to our room to get ready for bed, and I can still feel how disgusted I was when she tried to initiate intimacy and how shocked she was when I turned her down. I wouldn't be able to the same room with her after what I just learned that night, what you learned that night. And she's like, "I'm being rejected?" She tried for about 10 minutes asking me what was wrong. She knew I was angry about something. I told her I wasn't feeling well, and just to go to sleep. That was on Friday. So guys, after close to 30 minutes here, we're going to wrap up this part of the story. And I know you're all screaming here. We're going to do part 2 or part 3 of this in a few hours, probably in the early evening, so you can find out how this whole thing ends and how he confronts her. And you can probably imagine all the lines that come out of her mouth from the Hobag handbook. You can imagine those lines and the crying and carryings on and all that bullshit, and how this whole thing ends here with this guy, or at least brings us up to the present date. And it's definitely a good one. Definitely want to check in and check it out. So definitely, again, tonight, keep your eyes peeled for the update, and you will see it then. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this guy's part of the story. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.